A very good morning to the students of class 6, and we were discussing in the last class about the chapter sorting materials into groups, and in the last class we discussed about the topic about the different elements which makes up the different compounds. Like we discussed about what is the elements that make up the molecule of water is hydrogen and oxygen, then common salt is sodium and chloride or chlorine, and then sugar it is carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, and then for sand it is oxygen and silicon, and for urea it is carbon, nitrogen, oxygen and hydrogen. And I hope you all know what is urea. It is a chemical fertilizer that is used to mix up with the soil so that the fertility of the soil increases. So then washing soda, it is a powder, white powder type, where you add it to along with the detergent so that the difficult stains or the clothes when it has been soaked in that water, then it is mixed up with water, and then the dirt comes out very easily. So the cleansing action of the washing soda to clean up the clothes is much better. So as we move on, as I was telling you that there are 118 elements that makes up the different that are present on the Earth's crust, and 92 of them, as I told you, they are naturally occurring elements, and the others have been made by the scientists in the laboratories. So these common examples, as you know, hydrogen, it is the smallest element, and also with the atomic number, that is the atomic number 1, and also it is present as around our atmosphere as a gas. And then we also have oxygen, because as you all know that oxygen is also an element, because as you know that without taking in oxygen, human beings cannot survive, and that oxygen is being taken out. Carbon dioxide, we give out carbon dioxide, and that carbon dioxide, of course carbon dioxide is not an element, it is a compound, right? So carbon dioxide is made up of two different elements, that is carbon and oxygen. Then we have other example of elements like chlorine, then zinc, helium, then even iron. As you know that most of the materials around us is also made up of iron. And then we have sodium, that as I told you, the elements which are present in sodium chloride is sodium and chlorine, which is actually we consume along with our food, that is common salt. So sodium, and also remember that sodium and chlorine, both of them are poisonous, right? But when they combine together, they give a different substance or compound which is known as sodium chloride, and we consume in our daily food as common salt, and this common salt is known as, this sodium chloride is known as common salt. Now, what happens, you think about atoms like the letters of the alphabet, then what will happen, they will make thousands of words, and then these thousand of words can be made up of how many alphabets do we have? We have 26 alphabets, and these 26 alphabets, we have so many of words that are being formed, and you can find them in the dictionary. So you see that the dictionary is a huge book where the meaning of all the words are being given, because with these 26 letters we have been able to make up lots of words, lots of meaningful words. So this again, when you compare this with the 100 elements on the earth, then what happens, they combine together to form different compounds, the same as the 26 alphabets of the English letters combining together to form meaningful words. So here also, if you combine or you heat any compound, then what happens, under favorable condition, you will find that different compounds or different substances are being formed. So this is known as the formation of the compounds. Like in fact, you will be very surprised to know that the atoms of two gas, they form a compound, right? A compound water. Like as I told you, that means when hydrogen and oxygen, they combine together, then they form water. Now hydrogen is also a gas and oxygen is also a gas, but liquid, this is the abbreviation for gas and this is the abbreviation for, G is the abbreviation for gas and L is the abbreviation for liquid. So these two, that is hydrogen and oxygen, they combine together to form a molecule of water. Whereas you see, hydrogen and oxygen are both gases, and then when they combine together, they form a different compound which is liquid in nature, right? So and then they have actually like you see, the shape of hydrogen is of water is what? H2O. So the shape is actually now here you see that they have a different structure about it. So that means with oxygen, two atoms of hydrogen will combine together to form a molecule of water. So and this is actually a bond. That means a combination, they combine together and they form a bond, just like you hold your hands together. It is the bond which actually forms. That means the hydrogen 1 will form a bond with oxygen and hydrogen 2 will form another bond with oxygen, and they will form the bond at an angle of 100, and if you measure the angle, then you will find that it is 108 degree 28 minutes. Now similarly, if you talk about vinegar, vinegar, I hope you know what is vinegar. It is actually an organic acid which is a compound of carbon, oxygen and hydrogen. When it is known as an organic acid, when the carbon is being present and when it forms a bond between the carbon and hydrogen and the oxygen, right? So this is known as the organic acid, and it is the strength of the organic acid is less. Okay, the strength of the organic acid is less. That is why what happens here is that CH3 COOH, here you see that there are 2 atoms of carbon and then 4 atoms of hydrogen and 2 atoms of carbon. So what if you refer to figure 4.3 where 4.1, that the molecule of vinegar is actually this, it is known as vinegar, and you know, I hope you know what is vinegar. Vinegar is actually the one which it's generally white in color. You can get it in the dark means soya sauce type also, which is being added to either fried rice or to chicken, then also to chow mein. So that white color like water type which is being added to this food delicacies is actually vinegar, and when you smell it you get a smell, a specific smell, and this is a form of organic acid. But as I told you, organic acids are not so strong as the mineral acids like nitric acid, sulfuric acid, so they are not so strong. So here what happens, if you refer to the figure, then what you will find that carbon atoms, right? Carbon atoms are phase 2. This vinegar, it is vinegar, and this is known as acetic acid also. Right. So here carbon, this is carbon and this is carbon. Then that means there are 2 carbon atoms. Then there is hydrogen. There is 2 oxygen atom. So here there is oxygen atom, and the hydrogen atom are being placed to each other. Okay, there are 4 atoms of hydrogen, and that is 4 atoms of hydrogen. So this makes, if you think this to be carbon, right, and this to be hydrogen, just to show the difference, and this O to be the oxygen atom. See here, 2 carbon atoms are there, then 3 and 1 is 4, and then this oxygen atom are also 2, 1 and 2. So this is the molecule of vinegar, and this vinegar is known as acetic acid. So I hope you have understood. And then as I told you that the sodium, in fact, like the constituent, when any reaction occurs, then what happens here is that the chemical properties of the constituent elements which make up a different compound will be different, right? So like when I was telling you that hydrogen and oxygen combine together to make compound water, then you see that the chemical properties of oxygen and hydrogen is different because they are gaseous and they are very reactive. And in fact hydrogen in fact oxygen can support burning, and this hydrogen can also initiate fire. So what happens when, in fact, when there is a when you have to test hydrogen, then what happens at the test whether it is a hydrogen gas, and you bring the hydrogen gas in front of a lighted matchstick, then it burns with a pop sound. So these are supporters of oxygen, supporter of burning, whereas hydrogen, the compound that is being formed after combination of 2 gaseous element, that is hydrogen and oxygen, that is water, it will in fact we use it to stop a fire, right? And it is liquid in nature. That means the chemical the chemical properties of the combining elements to form a different compound is different during a chemical reaction. So we move on to the next part, is the classification of the elements. Now you do as you know, if you look around yourself, you will find that some of the things are living, some of the things are non-living, no? And then you can tell also that this belongs to the plant world. You can tell that these are human beings, these are animals. So you know what is the classification of the different things that you see around us. So some of them, in fact, like atoms, what happens to atom? Actually, it builds up the matter. So they are so minute that you have to see it with a very, very powerful microscope. So in fact, you know, how do we know, or how do we classify? Because we know that they are different, the characteristics are different from each other. So that is why you will be able to know that these are actually things which we need to classify. And how do we classify? We classify on the basis of their characteristics. So as we move on, you will see that if you classify, generally what we do in our lower classes, you have studied that the basic classification is about living and then non-living, right? And when how do we define classification as? We define classification as grouping of things on the basis of their similarities of their properties is known as classification. So when they are having similar properties, like human beings, no, we men, people, what we do, we have 2 eyes, 2 legs, 2 hands, then 1 nose, then we have hair on our head, right? And then we can move on from one place to another, we can talk, we can see. So you know that these are similar properties. Some of them might be having some deformities, but still then we have the similar properties by which we can classify this as the human beings or the people. Now on the other hand, then plants, what we see that they are generally green in color, then they cannot move, they stick. Only what they do, when the wind blows, they move. But some of the plants we have, like touch me not, when you touch it, it closes down. No, after some time, then it again opens. Then again, if we talk about sunflower, it moves along with the sun. So these living things, they share, though they share the similar properties, but still then they have some different properties. Like every human beings, as you know that the fingerprint, right? Every human being's fingerprint is different. Then even the print of the tongue, most of you might not be knowing it, the print of the tongue is also different for every individual. So this, though we share the similar properties, still then we have difference in our characteristics, because we can see that one individual can be differentiated from the other individual. So like amphibians, one which live both in land and water, like frog, no? Then fishes, they live in water and they are being classified as the group of pieces. So this is the classification which we actually confirm to not only to living beings, also to non-living beings. So here we will be continuing, I understand it's a finishing of the class for today, and we will be continuing with our discussion. Till that time, have a good day ahead.